Welcome to my channel Limelight Leaks. Please share and subscribe and hit the bell icon for new updates. As a church, as a united community of believers walking in the footsteps of Jesus, the announcement of a new era came not with fanfare, but with quiet surprise. Pope Leo XIV, freshly elected and already a figure of immense curiosity, made headlines by announcing a new phase, not with radical changes but with reflection. At the center of this moment stood Cardinal Luis Tagle, a name familiar to millions across the globe, especially in the Philippines, where he has long been cherished not just as a church leader, but as a symbol of hope. It all began back in 2012, when a tearful, deeply humbled Tagle accepted the red hat of a cardinal from Pope Benedict XVI. That moment, marked by visible emotion and grace, signaled to many Catholics that something transformative was underway. Here was a man of the people, charismatic, deeply spiritual, often called the Asian Francis, who walked among the poor, spoke from the heart, and cried without shame. For years, whispers of his future as Pope echoed across pews and theological halls. Yet fast forward to May 2025, and the world found itself holding its breath again as the conclave concluded and Pope Leo XIV emerged as the chosen one. What would this mean for Tagle? Would he rise further within the Church's intricate power structure, perhaps even as Secretary of State or head of a major congregation? On May 10th, the Holy See Press Office issued a message. Simple, unshaken. The Holy Father wishes, in fact, to reserve a certain amount of time for reflection, prayer, and dialogue before any definitive nomination or confirmation. With that one sentence, the emotional expectations of millions were redirected. It wasn't a dismissal. It wasn't even a delay, really. It was a pause. A rare, thoughtful pause in an institution often known for swift declarations. And this pause meant something. Just days after one of the most anticipated conclaves in recent history, many had looked to Tagle's future as a symbolic direction of the Church itself. Would he be elevated, silenced, sidelined? Instead, Pope Leo XIV chose something far more profound: humility over hierarchy, discernment over dominance. He kept Tagle and others in their current positions, not because of indecision, but because of spiritual conviction. This wasn't the Vatican playing politics. It was a spiritual leader refusing to act without first listening to God. And, in the eye of this stillness stood Tagle, not angry, not disappointed, not lobbying for influence. He remained as he always had, patient, humble, and grounded. "We wait for him to make the changes, if he wants to make the changes," Tagle said, his voice steady, unclenched. In that one line, the world saw who he truly was. A man who understood that leadership begins with letting go, not holding on. That trust in divine timing speaks louder than ambition. This wasn't resignation. This was grace. And it's that kind of grace that continues to draw Catholics to him, not because of any position, but because of the example he lives. Experts across Catholic media quickly pointed out, this was not a no, it was a not yet. The Vatican follows a protocol. When a new pope is elected, all heads of dicasteries automatically submit their resignation. This tradition clears the board, so to speak, allowing the new pontiff to begin his term with a fresh slate. But Leo XIV did not accept those resignations outright. He held them, he considered, he prayed, and in doing so, he demonstrated what kind of leader he might become. Not reactionary, not political, but deeply thoughtful. He didn't remove Tagle. He didn't replace anyone hastily. He simply asked for time. And in that time, the world saw a glimpse of something rarely witnessed: leadership from the soul. Some worried. Rumors began to circulate. Was Tagle being quietly pushed aside? Was there a whisper campaign brewing beneath the marble halls of the Vatican? But none of the facts supported such speculation. No major Catholic or secular news outlet, from the Inquirer to CNN, from the BBC to the New York Times, reported anything beyond what was officially announced. The Vatican remained silent on drama because there was none. In fact, Tagle stayed exactly where he was, a sign that Leo XIV saw no urgency in reshuffling what wasn't broken. The truth is, false narratives often rise where mystery dwells. A pause is mistaken for a rejection. Silence is misread as strategy. But here the truth remains simple. Pope Leo XIV is not a firebrand. He is not a tyrant disguised in robes. He is, as described by those who know him, a deeply pastoral soul, gentle, reflective, and serious about the enormous responsibility he now carries. Even Tagle, who had every reason to feel uncertain, described Leo as very human, very humble, very discerning. Those are not the words of a man under siege, they are the words of a man who trusts. And trust, when it comes from someone who could have been bitter, means more than any official statement. Still, the internet swirled with speculation. A few loud voices tried to reframe the moment as betrayal, but the facts remain unshaken. Leo XIV is no political operator. His past tells a different story. A missionary in Peru, fluent in multiple languages, comfortable in both Latin American and Asian contexts, he is no stranger to diversity, to cultural nuance, or to the needs of the global church. When elected, he did not sweep clean. He did not install his people. Instead, he invited stillness, called for silence, before making his first steps. And what kind of leader does that in today's world? One who leads not from fear, but from prayer. One who believes in the whispers of conscience more than the roars of headlines. For many Filipinos, the aftermath of the conclave felt like heartbreak. Tagle had become a symbol, a dream, a vision of a church more compassionate, more connected, more human. His not being chosen felt, for some, like a loss. And yet, Tagle himself stood on a stage in Manila, not to grieve, but to uplift. He acknowledged the pain. He named the sorrow. But then he redirected the hearts of his people not to Rome but to faith. God's plan is perfect, he said with tears in his voice, even when we don't understand it. And in that moment, something sacred happened. A collective ache was transformed into a spiritual offering. What makes Tagle's words so powerful isn't just their content, it's how he delivers them. He doesn't hide emotion. He doesn't armor himself in titles. He lets his humanity show. He cries when others cry. He trembles when the Spirit moves him. He lets truth sit unpolished and raw, and in doing so, he gives permission to others to feel, to believe, to heal. That is why his voice still moves so many, because it doesn't echo through golden halls. It rises from the hearts of the people. His speeches are not performances. They are prayers. They are invitations. They are moments of shared humanity. A Filipino lay leader put it best. If you see yourself as a servant, a bridge builder, or a quiet voice of truth in a noisy world, then Tagle is your mirror. And that is why his name still stirs emotion. Because in him, many see the church they hope for, not hierarchical, not power-hungry, but humble, real, and resonant. He could have demanded more. He could have shouted. But he chose to whisper. And in that whisper, millions heard something divine. The idea that he was betrayed in the 2025 conclave is unfounded. It is a myth born of disappointment and fed by media echo chambers. The truth is, Tagle was never chasing the crown. He was carrying the cross. And in a world obsessed with titles and triumph, maybe the greatest victory is found in quiet endurance. The conclave didn't crown him pope, but it did confirm something else, that in the absence of a title, his witness only grew. There was no fall. There was only grace. And in the Church's long memory, grace always speaks louder than betrayal. The story of Cardinal Luis Tagle does not end with the conclave or the passing of opportunity. Instead, it evolves into a testament of steadfast faith and the quiet power of perseverance. After the disappointment many felt in Manila and beyond, Tagle returned to his duties with a renewed sense of purpose, not bitterness. His focus shifted to what mattered most, serving the people, fostering dialogue, and building bridges across cultures and faith communities. For Tagle, leadership was never about titles or headlines. It was about embodying Christ's message of love and mercy in every action, every word, every moment. His work in the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples continued, where he championed marginalized communities, spoke boldly about the Church's responsibility to the poor, and emphasized the need for humility in global Catholic leadership. While some insiders in the Vatican whispered about political maneuvers and future papal ambitions, Tagle remained grounded in prayer and service. He knew the true battle was spiritual, not political. He often reminded those around him, and the Saksi, faithful worldwide, that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with human expectations. This patience was not passivity, it was active waiting, a form of resistance against the temptation to grasp power or succumb to cynicism. In countless interviews and sermons, Tagle continued to call the Church back to its roots, mercy, inclusion, and compassion. He addressed contemporary challenges with clarity and courage, from the crisis of faith among youth to the urgent call for ecological stewardship, making his voice a beacon for those seeking a church that listens and acts. Yet Tagle's humility never waned. When asked about his future, he deflected praise and speculation with gentle laughter and thoughtful silence. "I am a servant," he would say, "called to serve, wherever the Lord places me." This unwavering humility struck a chord in a world often hungry for authenticity. Among Filipinos, Tagle's example inspired renewed faith, especially among the young and marginalized, who saw in him a reflection of their own struggles and hopes. His presence at home became a source of pride and comfort, proving that greatness could coexist with gentleness and leadership with vulnerability. Meanwhile, Pope Leo XIV's approach continued to unfold, slowly but surely. The Pope's decision to take time for reflection before appointing new leaders signaled a broader intention to reform the Curia, with discernment rather than haste. This thoughtful leadership style resonated deeply with many, echoing Tagle's own emphasis on prayerful decision-making. Together, they embodied a church attempting to heal old wounds and chart a path forward, rooted in spiritual depth. Outside the Vatican, the world watched with a mixture of skepticism and hope. Critics questioned the pace of change, but supporters celebrated the return of contemplative leadership in a turbulent era. For Tagle, this period became an opportunity not only to serve, but to mentor, to nurture new voices within the Church, who shared his vision of a more inclusive, compassionate faith community. He quietly supported initiatives focused on interfaith dialogue, social justice, and youth engagement, believing that the future of the Church depended on embracing diversity and addressing the needs of the most vulnerable. Through all this, Tagle's integrity remained unblemished. In an age rife with scandal and division, his consistency was a balm to many. He refused to be drawn into factionalism or power struggles, choosing instead to embody what he called the way of the gospel, a path marked by love, patience, and courage. His story, therefore, is not one of lost opportunity but of enduring witness, a reminder that true leadership transcends titles and politics. It is found in the hearts and actions of those who remain faithful, even when the spotlight fades. As we look toward the future of the Catholic Church, the legacy of Cardinal Luis Tagle invites us to reconsider what it means to lead. His life challenges us to prioritize service over status, to choose grace over grievance, and to trust that in the quiet moments of waiting and prayer, God's plan is unfolding in ways we may not yet see but can always believe. In this unfolding story, there is hope. A hope that shines not just in grand gestures but in the daily acts of kindness, humility, and faith that shape the Church and the world. This is the heart of Tagle's journey, one of resilience, humility, and unwavering commitment to the Gospel's call. And in that, he remains not just a cardinal or a churchman, but a living testament to the power of grace to transform lives and inspire generations. In the midst of global uncertainty, where institutions often seem rigid and slow to change, Cardinal Luis Tagle stands out as a beacon of hope and renewal. His journey reflects more than personal resilience. It represents a broader narrative of a church wrestling with its identity in the 21st century. While headlines might focus on conclaves, appointments, and power plays, Tagle's story reminds us that the real work of the Church happens in moments of quiet courage, in the gentle care of the marginalized, and in the persistent call to mercy that echoes through the gospel. The world today faces numerous challenges: political polarization, social injustice, environmental crises, and a growing skepticism toward religion itself. In this context, Tagle's example is profoundly relevant. He embodies a form of leadership that refuses to be defined by the world's standards of success, instead drawing strength from faith and the deep conviction that service is the highest calling. This has made him not only a spiritual leader, but a moral compass for many Catholics around the world, especially in Asia and the global South, where his voice resonates deeply. His presence challenges long-held perceptions about who can lead and how. At a time when the Church grapples with the need for inclusivity, Tagle's identity as a Filipino and an Asian cardinal brings fresh perspectives and urgency to global conversations. He highlights the importance of listening to voices from regions often overlooked in Vatican politics, emphasizing that the future of Catholicism is not confined to Europe, but is vibrant and alive across continents and cultures. Yet, Tagle's influence is not limited to geopolitics or church administration. It is his genuine connection with people, whether in bustling Manila streets or remote villages, that underscores his impact. His ability to meet individuals where they are, to share in their struggles and joys without pretense, sets him apart. as a pastor, in the truest sense. This pastoral heart beats at the core of his ministry and explains why so many feel drawn to him, not because of his rank, but because of his authenticity. Even in moments of intense public scrutiny and pressure, Tagle's focus remains unwaveringly on the spiritual well-being of the faithful. His messages consistently invite us back to the foundational Christian call to love one another, to build community, and to practice humility in all things. These themes, timeless yet urgently needed today, are woven through every speech, sermon, and written word he shares. The contrast between Tagle's style and the often harsh realities of institutional politics is stark but instructive. It reminds us that true leadership does not need to shout to be heard. It can be quiet, consistent, and deeply transformative. In this way, Tagle becomes a mirror reflecting what many desire in the Church, a return to compassion, prayer, and courageous service. Pope Leo XIV's decision to take time before appointing new leaders, including whether Tagle would take on a new role, reveals a shared vision rooted in patience and discernment. It is a leadership style that acknowledges the complexity of the times and respects the need for reflection rather than rash decisions. Together, their approaches suggest a hopeful direction for the Church, one that values spiritual depth and collective wisdom over quick fixes or political maneuvering. As the Church moves forward, the lessons from Tagle's journey are clear. Leadership grounded in humility, service, and faith can inspire profound change. It encourages the faithful to remain hopeful, even when outcomes are uncertain or delayed. And it reminds the global community that the power of grace and resilience often outshines the fleeting glare of power struggles. In the end, Cardinal Luis Tagle's story is a beacon, inviting us to see beyond the surface of ecclesiastical politics to the deeper narrative of faith, hope, and love that sustains the Church. His legacy is not defined by a single title or moment, but by the continuous witness of a man committed to embodying the gospel in every season of life. As the world watches, the invitation remains open for all to join in this journey, to embrace a faith that endures, a leadership that serves, and a community that welcomes all. If you wish I can continue with the next sections or focus on specific parts you want expanded, just let me know. In a world often hungry for headlines, dramatic shifts, and instant answers, Cardinal Luis Tagle offers us something far rarer and more precious: the enduring strength of grace, patience, and faithful leadership. His journey is a testament to the quiet power of resilience and the profound impact of leading with humility and love. Pope Leo XIV's thoughtful approach and Tagle's gracious response remind us all that true change is often a slow, prayerful process, guided not by haste or ambition, but by discernment and faith. So, as the Church continues to navigate an ever-changing landscape, Tagle's example shines as a beacon of hope, not because he holds a particular title or position, but because he lives out the gospel in ways that inspire, heal, and unite. This is a story not of defeat or betrayal, but of dignity, endurance, and the quiet triumph of grace. And in the end, that is a legacy worth celebrating and following. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story inspiring, please consider subscribing to support the channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more meaningful content. Until next time, stay hopeful and keep the faith.